Um,
Hey, everybody, thank you for joining me. And listen, we have a great program. We are live. Feel free to send in your questions or whatever you have. But I have two special guests today. David Tal, Tank Commander, IDF Major, is joining us along with John Howler. Thank you guys for joining us.
Good to be here, Tom.
wow, it's amazing to be back. And I love your background.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what it is behind me right now. Oh, I can see that. That's cool. That is cool.
The Mondo Gonzalez photo, it looks like.
Yeah, with different colors on it. Man, what a wild day. I'm just going to start off with a couple of videos. One of them is, everybody, it's a hospital. We've obviously have had these cell devices or pagers blowing up, removing the, I guess you would say, the need for some men to have 72 virgins in their eternity. But that's another story. And then the other one is Naftali, a video that he made. Then we're going to comment from there. Let's roll these. The first one's probably about 10, 15 seconds. You can see this. This is a hospital. You guys saw this one, right? With all the guys laying there. So the first one's a hospital. These are people who are injured. And the next video, I'm just going to let Naftali talk. Let's just roll the next video with Naftali. Let him talk, and then we're going to take off from here.
What we are witnessing isn't just a military strike. This is a cyber warfare at a level that Hezbollah wasn't ready for. I think this is the biggest cyber attack probably in Lebanon's history, if not the Middle East history. Imagine the panic as Hezbollah operatives who thought they were safe suddenly found their devices exploding in their hands. They definitely didn't see this coming, and now they're left picking up the pieces. And the million-dollar question is, could this spark a war? Hezbollah is furious right now. Their leader Hassan Nasrallah has sworn that any attack on Beirut would be met with a massive counterstrike. But here's the reality. He is stuck. The last time Hezbollah tried to ramp things up, Israel hit them so hard they couldn't even react. This is what it means to take control of the battlefield in the 21st century. Technology is the new weapon. If they want to escalate, we will be ready. But Hezbollah better believe that the next strike won't be something they can recover from. So, where does this leave us? Could this pager explosion be the spark that ignites a full-blown war? It very well could be. But I'll tell you this. If Nasrallah thinks he can get away with starting a war, he's about to learn a hard lesson. Israel is not just defending itself anymore. We're on the offense. And we won't stop until our enemies understand that attacking us is a one-way ticket to destruction.
So, I mean, I thought it was a great video. Naftali, everybody, is going to be joining me next Monday, a week from yesterday. He was supposed to join me right now, but yeah, that got preempted by everything going on with this event. David, I'm going to start with you, then I'm going to turn it over to John. John and I talk even more than you and I do, David. We talk a lot, but I'm going to turn it over to you, David. What do you make of things, and even some of the things that Naftali says? What's your assessment?
Okay, first of all, we need to be careful not to laugh too much about this because it's kind of a serious subject. Did you see on the video clip of the hospital spaces, most of the wounds were head wounds. And I think the count that they're talking about, as of what I heard about a little while ago, 3,200 devices exploded and more than 250 injured, some of them seriously injured. So that's a little bit about the technology. I don't know if you saw the meme running around about who pulled this off. According to Arab sources, the Mossad agent, his name is Avi Beeper. And that was a joke.
It's okay to laugh at that one, right?
So.
I think they're saying that he's a close relative of Helicopter. the one that, pulled off well, and what I'm trying to say is this. Israel has deeply, deeply infiltrated the Hezbollah, and there's a lot of ramifications to that. If they can pull off this, that means that they have known what was going on through this system for a long, long time, which raises a lot of questions. And John, maybe we can talk about this. Israel is giving up an asset in order to achieve a goal. The question is, what have they given up? What do they are achieving? And what is going to be the ramifications of this? And the last question I have more than anything right now, and I think everybody's yelling at us, has anybody seen Nasrallah yet lately? Do we know that he wasn't hurt, wounded, or whatever? And maybe, John, have you heard something about that?
I'm not. I was just checking out I follow closely the Al-Manar website, which is Hezbollah's media page in Lebanon. By the way, if you go there, look it up, Al-Manar, M-A-N-A-R, and open it in Google Chrome, and it will translate it to English for you. So no, and Nasrallah never surfaces. I mean, but he does have meetings every now and then with, for example, I remember there were some meetings recently before the helicopter crash that you referenced took out Raisi and the foreign minister of Iran a few months ago. He had meetings with the foreign minister of Iran. He's had meetings with Raisi. But he probably stays underground. I don't know if he's seen sunlight in 30 years, to be honest with you. He never, because if he comes up, he's dead. This was a stunning operation. It's one of those ones where you try to think of something that would make a good movie script, and if you came up with this one, everybody would tell you, no, you have to do something in a movie that's sort of believable. You can have a superhero, but it has to be kind of touched with reality. And most people reject a script like this, but it's actually what happened. I don't want to take too much of the time here, but I did extensively review a speech that Nasrallah made last week. This was after, I believe it was Shakur. He was the number 2 guy in Hezbollah who was taken out I guess almost a month ago now. His nephew was taken out just last week. And of course, Nasrallah always makes those speeches. If you think I'm long-winded, he's 1, 2, 3 hours sometimes. But I read his speech, and it was very interesting. They said that they had attacked, and David, I would like your take on this. They had said they attacked the Unit 8200 base up in the Galilee. This was after Hania and Shakur had been taken out, and that they had killed 22 Israelis at that base, the Unit 8200 base. Now, I've never heard anything about this, and I'm pretty sure this is Hezbollah propaganda. But what he said in that speech was kind of interesting, because he said, okay, we've now responded to the attacks against Hania and Shakur. We've exacted our vengeance. And again, that was more Hezbollah propaganda to kind of tamp down, I think, the reaction that's happening within the Hezbollah community, and what you also see over in, I think that Jordan is a big hotbed of angst, anger at the Jordanian monarchy because they haven't been strong enough in their response. They've kind of gone along, and Ben Gavir's been doing the things with the Temple Mount, and Jews are going up there and praying. Christians are going up there and praying. And so Jordan is on a knife's edge from what I can see politically. The Muslim Brotherhood just had pretty good results. I think they took 31 seats, more than any other party in the parliamentary elections just last week. So I will just say, this thing it's very deep. This was a tremendous operation. I don't know that I disagree with Hania in his video that, will this provoke a war? There already is a war. The question is, how big is the war going to be? So, David, I'd like your comments on Unit 8200, the alleged attack on Unit 8200 base up in the Galilee. And they had, aerial photographs of it and everything. And I also like your take. I was reading some posts by Seth France, my friend Seth France from the Jerusalem Post. I hope to interview him in the near future. But he was saying that, and I think Caroline Glick also said the same thing. This attack on Sunday with the missile from the Houthis in Yemen, it's a very big deal.
Yes.
I think much bigger than we think, because what it says is there's no place safe in Israel right now. And it only took one missile, as they said, to get 2 million people to head to a bomb shelter. And my app went off at about 1 a.m. Sunday morning here in Ohio. And it was just covered with red, but it was only one missile. And all these warnings were going off. So, and I think Seth and Caroline have said, how do we make it safe for us? And I think I heard you on James Cadiz earlier today talking about 80,000 people in the north. How do you get them home, and how do you stop Hezbollah and Iran from shrinking Israel, which is exactly what's happening? So I'm really interested in your comments.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack. Shmona Matayim, 8,200. Okay. What we call 8,200 is, how do you say, our intelligence? What's the word in English? Human and tech. How do you get human intelligence and technological intelligence? I don't know. Don't remember the two terms. What are the two terms, John?
Well, we call it CIA.
Yeah, okay. But it's not our CIA, but it's responsible for all the technology that connects. Side note, 8,200 is one of the main, I'm going to say, instigators of Israel's high-tech community, meaning people who come out of the 7,200 unit become Israel's high-tech innovators. So this is high technology, and they did fire, but they didn't hit anything. That's the main issue. And Nasrallah didn't hit anything on that last attack. And I don't know if you watched some of the memes that came out of the Arab world. He did hit a chicken farm and killed quite a few chickens, and he's being ridiculed for that.
I think he was accused of genocide.
Yeah, and he killed Mossad chickens in the chicken farm and so forth and so on. So he's shooting and missing, but the sound of the gun is enough to give him some sense of I'm doing something about it. So that's basically what's happening. And then let's go back to this attack and a couple of things about this attack that I think a lot of people don't understand. That it is a terror attack. It is the opposite. We are terrorizing them. We're creating a point where anybody in the Middle East will think twice, if you are an enemy of Israel, about putting a cell phone or a pager or an earbud in your ear, because you don't know if that Israeli hack will not reach you. So it's going to put fear in the head of everyone. It is a disruption of the Hezbollah communication. It is an indicator of who are the Hezbollah operatives all over Lebanon and Syria. I don't know if you know, but some of those exploded in Damascus. Some of them exploded in the Quneitra area on the Golan Heights, and a lot of them exploded in the Dakhia area in Beirut. So we know where the Hezbollah operators are. And I'm going to say something as an Israeli soldier, and again, maybe I'm not really objective. This is the most moral military attack that I've ever seen. Think about again, Israel hasn't taken responsibility, so I'm not going to say Israel. I'm going to say whoever did this, okay, found a way to attack the Hezbollah operatives, each and every one specifically, with a small, not even a military charge, with a small battery with no collateral damage. There is no more moral attack of an enemy than this attack. And this is something I want to kind of stress as much as possible, because everybody's accusing Israel of genocide and disproportionality. This is as direct, as surgical, as proportional, because only people who are the enemy have one of these beepers. Only people who have one of the enemy have one of these pagers. And it's very interesting that the ambassador of Iran in Beirut was injured in this also, because he is one of the enemy. Another thing I want to stress here is there is a tit for tat going on in the world of warfare between high tech and low tech. The Hamas attack on the 7th of October was a good example of Israel with all its high tech and the walls and the cameras and the 50 caliber guns that are kind of connected to this, and they drove a tractor through the fence. And all of your high tech is basically the Houthis sitting on a little corner in the middle of nowhere with no technology, no military and everything, are holding the world at bay because they have access to enough technology that they can create a disruption. Same thing with Hezbollah. And there was this thing that maybe all of our high technology isn't giving us a military advantage. This proves that level of technology can be a wonderful, wonderful asset in the war, and it allows you to target who needs to be targeted and to do it in such a specific way. They're going to go back to phones with telephone lines and Pony Express to pass messages from side to side in Lebanon.
Yeah, so let me.
One last question. Yeah. When I heard this for the first time, I thought this would be an amazing opening strike if we are on our way into something much more major in Lebanon. And I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens.
Well, that's where I wanted to go with this, because we keep reading and hearing about it, and you're going to have much better, you have your hand on the pulse better than I'm going to. But we look at this is cyber technology at its best. It's amazing when we hear all of the propaganda about how evil Israel is. They're killing all these civilians. I'm sure this will even get twisted to be, well, it wasn't just Hezbollah agents that were killed, but it's pretty amazing, the technology. When I was with you, it would have been over a year and a half ago when we were down at Sderot, and it was Islamic Jihad, and the generals were taken out by Israel. And they were targeted through, I think, apartment windows, where just those 3 individuals were taken out. Nobody else was hurt, all at the exact same time. This is how Israel has been doing their battles. But when you see this really softens up the target a lot, because, as you said, this puts everybody on notice. Not just this, but what happened with the Islamic Jihad generals the time I was down there with you, what happened to the second in command of Hezbollah in the Iranian compound. He's gone.
Shukr in Beirut, yeah.
And Beirut. So you look at these, and Hamas in Iran. And so you look at all of these different things coming from different types of attacks. This one has to really lay the groundwork for massive concern. And you look at the disrupting of communications, like you said, going back to telephone lines and Pony Express. So you see this changes the battlefield, so to speak. John, you sent me a long article earlier this morning, real early this morning, about all the same time this news was breaking about the things that Israel is up against. But this definitely changes the dynamic, I would think, to some extent, where it's got to cause them to say, hey, we have a problem with Israel. As tiny as Israel is, this cyber technology and the different ways that Israel has hit us, we have a problem. But I'm just thinking back to the article this morning, John.
Right. Yeah, that was an article on Foreign Affairs, and that's a Council on Foreign Relations publication. and it was by a retired brigadier general from the IDF. Can't remember his name. For the INSS, whatever that is, so Institute for National Security and Strategy or something like that. And it's kind of a center, I would call it a center to center left organization. It's where a lot of the IDF professionals go, and it's clear that some of the IDF professionals don't necessarily have Israel's best interest at heart. I mean, it's just another, to me, it's almost another front that Israel's facing. Everybody talks about 7 or 8, but it may be 9 or 10 if you include the internal issues that Israel's having and some of the lack of support. I mean, the government's at each other's throats. The business people came out today, I think, and said, Netanyahu, don't fire Gallant. We need to keep Gallant in there. So there's this tension internally in Israel. But look, this was a huge thing. There is no question, David, I'm sure you'll agree with this. There is absolutely no question. Everybody I talked to, the people at Alma, Amir Avivi at IDSF, and all those other people, something has to be done in Lebanon in a ground operation. I think they're pulling some people away from Gaza. This is my understanding. But it's going to be a massive operation. If the Alma people have things correct, the tunnel system in Lebanon is far more extensive than what they've found that Hamas had built in Gaza, and they've been building it for what, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's through bedrock. I mean, you've been up there, you know more, you've seen it. I've driven across the border and everything. And so I will say 2 things. Israel has to do something with Hezbollah. This certainly can't be the end. And it may be a great way to blind them on communications, followed by a ground operation.
Hold on, just quick. It just came up on my feed. You said blind them by communications. 500 Hezbollah operatives were blinded by these explosions. Blinded.
So it wasn't just a figurative blinding, it was a literal blinding.
Exactly. Because those little pagers were, okay, what they did is they sent a message. People picked up the pager to read the message, and that's when it exploded. So the blinding is not figurative.
I mean, but the other thing, your statement that this is one of the most moral attacks on a military basis that you've ever seen. I agree 100% with that, because it only attacked the Hezbollah terrorists. And I just want to reemphasize what Zaritza Havi said in an interview recently. She's the founder of Alma Research. And she said, if you go to the Almanar website and pull up, they have a memorial page for everybody that's been killed. And I think there's 500 now have been killed in these attacks. And in the war in the north, that is not a war, but there's a couple dozen dead Israelis, there's 500 dead Hezbollah. Which is more than I think in the Second Lebanon War in terms of dead Lebanese.
Yeah.
But so it's a war that nobody really wants to call a war, but it has to be done. They only went after the terrorists. And in these memorial pages, every single memorial page says, on the road to Jerusalem, he was martyred. And there's a picture of the Dome of the Rock. So this is really about Jerusalem. That Jerusalem and Israel and the existence of Israel. And I think this is existential. I think something needs to be done. And David, you're a tank commander. You know, you can't go up in Lebanon in tanks in the winter. You can't go up and down those hills when they're covered with snow, because they get snow up there. And then there's also, I think, I don't know, Tom, if Bill Salas sent you the article from, I forget where it was from, but it was a good point. If Israel's going to do this, they need to do it before November 5th, because November 5th is the election. That's the night Tom and I are going to be out at Calvary Chapel Harbor with Joe Pettit. But if Kamala Harris wins this thing, buddy, there's problems. There's political problems with the United States.
Let me cut in here for just a second, and I want to let everybody know we are taking your questions live. If you have a question, put the word question in all caps so I can easily see it. And also, if you would like, subscribe, and share, it helps us to combat all the lies with the truth. It's really the only way that we can to be able, with your likes, subscribes, and shares. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. But again, send in your questions. Yeah, John, that's going to be quite interesting. On election night, we'll be with Pastor Joe Pettit, Calvary Chapel, the Harbor. David knows that church very well, kind of his home church. We'll be there. What an event that's going to be. Both of you are going to be with us at the End of the World Conference 3 days later in Temecula. And David, I know John knows this. I don't know if I told you why we call it the End of the World, because it's 3 days after the election. And a lot of people are going to be thinking it's the end of the world. But Dan Cohen's going to be joining us, by the way, and Eric Stackelbeck also. I don't think it's going to be a great conference.
It's going to be cool.
Okay, let me turn it back over to what John was talking about. I did see that article from Bill. Dan, what are your thoughts on the things that John was just saying? And I don't think no pagers went off in the U.S., did they, John, that you know of? Somebody else, Melanie just asked that question. I mean, I didn't hear about any booms going off here. It was just
this was a targeted attack on Hezbollah pagers.
Yeah.
And my understanding is too, these were recently put into usage by Hezbollah over the last year.
Yeah.
So, according to what I just now got on one of the Israeli channels, the Mossad got its hands on the beepers before they were handed out to the operatives. And as opposed to what I thought beforehand, there were actually explosives in the beepers. So that is a situation.
So I think the way, so you say the Mossad has an operation sort of known as Pagers R Us or something like that, that they manufactured the pagers. I mean, this is an incredible operation. I mean, this is unbelievable.
This goes back to what you're talking about. Well, it was Ellie Cohen you mentioned earlier. You know, when you think of that.
Helicopter, yeah.
Yeah, that was just.
Well, helicopter, and now we have Avi Beeper.
Helicopter. You mentioned, that's what you said, helicopter. That's funny. I was thinking Ellie Cohen from what war was that, 19, whatever it was. That's funny, helicopter and Avi Beeper. That's terrible. I can't believe I'm laughing at that. So let me go back to the missile, because everything is just, it really is something else. I'm going to Israel. I'm going to be there in 2 weeks. I'm actually looking forward to being there, David. You know that. And but so this missile flies just the other day. It's the Houthis that shoot it. What are some of the implications that are coming from that, especially since the U.S. either didn't know that missile was fired by the Houthis, or the U.S. just chose not to let Israel know? I mean, it's a very concerning situation all the way around, I think.
Can I start with making it personal before we go to the technological?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get the indicator that a missile is being fired, and the reason I get the indicator is because you put the software on certain areas in Israel, and the siren went off in Modi'in. That's where I live. And that's where my mom is. So the first thing I do is I call my mom. And she says, yes, we're in the mamad. The mamad is the bomb shelter. Yes, the iron window that kind of closes off the window of the bomb shelter is closed. And no, Nathan is not in the mamad. My brother, he went up on the roof to see what was going on. So that's Israel. I mean, that's how we deal with it. Yes, 2 million people went into bomb shelters, but that's because of the footprint of the missile, meaning we don't know where it's going to hit. 3, the Houthis are saying, and it seems plausible, that this was a hypersonic missile. They're calling it a hypersonic missile, which means hypersonic means that it's many times the speed of sound. And the missile actually goes up into the stratosphere. And according to the reports from Israel, it broke up on re-entry, which is why there was a larger footprint than we thought it was going to go. And they fired both Arrow 2 and Iron Dome interceptors, not so much as at the missile, but at the pieces of the missile that were re-entering the atmosphere and coming on down. One of those pieces ended up on the escalator in the train station that I use in Modin on a regular basis. I mean, I just saw the picture. And yeah, I've been there. I've been there many, many times. But what I'm trying to say is this. One missile puts all of Israel into bomb shelters. The question is, one, what would happen if it was 30, 40, 50 missiles? Two, why did that missile go over Saudi Arabia that has a huge American presence, over Jordan that has a huge American presence, and we didn't get any kind of indication of it coming in? Three, in the end, the missile did fall in an open space. It didn't hit anything, but it was probably targeted at the airport. And as a result, I'm looking at my feed, airlines are dropping out of the sky like flies right now, because no airlines want to fly into Israel anymore. That's connected to what we're talking about. And four, my main question is right now, what is Israel going to do in response to this? Because in response to the missile that took out, that managed to go into Tel Aviv, the drone that managed to go into Tel Aviv, we took out half of the main harbor in the Houthi Yemenite area in Yemen. And I think there's a discussion going on right now. What do we do? Do we take out the second hand of the part of the harbor? And already I've been hearing on my feed that the United Nations and the Yemeni authorities are starting to cry about the humanitarian crisis that will actually be incurred if Israel hits the other half of that harbor, the other half of that port. And you're getting, in a nutshell, the situation.
This would be what we would call in California terms the Menendez defense. The Menendez brothers killed their parents and then went to the judge at sentencing and asked for mercy because they were orphans.
Exactly.
Having killed their, and so this is exactly what they're doing. I'm looking at Al Akbar newspaper, tomorrow's edition that's already published. I don't see anything in there about this little thousands of incidents that occurred in Lebanon today. So I guess it just didn't hit the press by the time publication came.
Wow.
I'm not seeing it. I'm, it's Arabic, so it's taking me a little bit of time while we're talking here to try to translate it. But I don't see anything about it. It looks like a picture of Klaus Schwab and Guterres at a meeting.
Oh, why am I not surprised?
I mean, this is everything. Everything is insane now. I mean, it's
okay. So I think, and maybe Tom, this will relate to something that you talk about a lot: the use of technology in warfare, and how to morally use technology in warfare is a question that we're going to have to be asking right now. This attack was a very moral attack, but here's a question. If we have an all-out attack, if Israel can actually enter into or hack into communication systems on that level, that means we can hack into train systems. You don't have to fly an airplane out to blow up a train. You can derail it by hacking in. You can hack into, I don't know if you remember, after one of the attacks from Iran, Israel hacked into the, the cargo controlling software of the main container harbor and actually mixed up all of the numbers of all the containers in the harbor. I don't know if you remember that. But if you can do that on a harbor, you can do that on an electricity grid. You can do that on other things. And the question is, like with other weapons, what moral constructs should be on you to using the weapons that you have in order to take out the target? Is it okay for Israel to create a humanitarian crisis in Yemen now as a result of this?
Well, okay, yeah, let me answer. I think, John, wasn't it Stuxnet? Wasn't that the name of it? The Israeli operation that took out the nuclear threat of Iran like years ago?
Took out it messed up the centrifuges.
Yeah, that was years ago. So that technology warfare by Israel has been going on a long time. We know the technology of Israel is exceptionally advanced, even over, you could probably even say, the U.S. when it comes to certain things too that they are doing. But okay, so when we look at this humanitarian crisis, the problem is the problem Israel has is the propaganda war, because no matter what happens, you still have the universities that are full of these Marxists that are here. We now have the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens that are on the right that are against Israel. You have this nonsense that is constantly put out there. So that's a huge problem. But when you think of technology, here's the other challenge that Israel has, David, and I think you had mentioned this to me one time when we were out to dinner. Now the pressure is growing against Israel because they have the technology with Iron Dome to eliminate the threats of rockets. Much of the world now says, well, why do you have to go and attack people in Gaza? Why do you have to go up to Lebanon? Because you can simply defend yourself with the Iron Dome. So there's this dynamic because of Israel's technology being able to defend themselves. The propaganda is even against Israel for that also. I mean, I just find it very interesting. But a humanitarian crisis, when you look at, you look at what the U.S. did in Iraq, you start looking what's happened in Syria with their civil war. What about the hundreds of thousands, even millions of Muslims? What about the Uyghurs in China? Those things are never, ever addressed. It only comes down to Israel, and when Israel is already fighting a war in the most humanitarian way that we've ever seen. And by the way, I have a live Q&A tomorrow, everybody. Just join me. I'll be able to answer your other questions related to Ezekiel 38 and things like that tomorrow, where it will be a little bit more applicable. Plus, that's all I'll do tomorrow. And that's 2 o'clock. It'll be on all my outlets. Okay. So, I mean, I look at that, David, that's my thoughts as I look at these things.
Let's start off with World War I. The invent of the machine gun changed the dynamics of trench warfare. And the result of that, or as an answer to that, somebody invented a tank. And World War II was the dawn of the tank and the fact that you have an armored system that a machine gun can overcome. The Germans at the end of World War II created the shape charge, which actually would overcome any kind of tank armor. So you lose the tank. Then the tanks, I mean, I fought on tanks where we were targeted by Sager missiles and RPGs. So Israel goes and invents the trophy system, which actually takes out incoming. So what I'm trying to say is there's this tit for tat in weapon systems that I mean, I can go back to the bow and arrow and then armor and then, guns. You have that going on. We're in the middle of another one of that. Okay, so the Iron Dome kind of puts an Iron Dome, but no matter what, in the end, the enemy or the technology will change and there will be a kink in the armor, if you want. Our plate armor was used in the medieval period to overcome bladed swords, big broadswords. So the French created the little rapier, the little sword that kind of goes into the kink in the armor and punctures your lung with, in the crack between the armor. There's going to be like that. And we can go down that road. This solution to this, and this is almost biblical, is not only to guard yourself behind the wall, behind the castle, behind the moat, behind the armor, but is to go out and make sure that your enemy doesn't want to attack you. Your enemy has a reason not to attack you. Because if you just go the wall, build up walls around yourself, and the end somebody's going to find a kink in the armor. And that's what Israel understood more than anything on October 7th. We should have understood this in the Yom Kippur War with the Bar-Lev line. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. We had a big, massive line down in the Sinai. And the French should have understood this with the Maginot Line in World War II. The enemy's going to find a kink. So you put the armor, that's a short term, but the long term is to make your enemy not want to attack you. And I think that's the place where Israel is right now, making this decision. What do we do to make sure that the Hezbollah or Iran doesn't want to attack us next time? And I think that is the main question that is being asked right now on the stage. John would probably have more to say about that than me.
That's a great
David,
question.
let me ask
John,
you this. So,
real quick, John, I got to say something here, then turn it over to you. So I only got like 3 minutes left because I got to get elsewhere. So take it away, John.
Well, so David, I know that what will happen though is if Israel goes in, the concern is that they're going to deplete all their stuff. You know, they're going to deplete their Iron Dome and the Arrow and that type of thing. And there's the manufacturing lines aren't there to keep up with the need. I just think it's a very, very difficult situation. And Tom, you and I talked about this with Bill last week. We need to keep Israel in our prayers because there are some extremely difficult decisions that are coming. And I played a clip at the beginning of my update the other day. They just did this massive drone array display with lighted drones in China last week, 8,100 operating simultaneously. That's a world record. But that has a military, the article was clear, that has a military operation as well. And so there's all these things in technology that the span of the tit for tat that you mentioned, David, is compressed now way beyond what it was. I mean, things have to happen very quickly.
Just to add one piece of that, all of Israel's great wars, great achievements, great victories, is when we went on the offensive. Look at the Yom Kippur War as opposed to the Six-Day War. What was the main difference? Okay, now we went on the offensive in the Six-Day War, but as a result, we were actually taken off the status of the underdog the minute we did it. Until that, we were underdogs. Until that, I believe Israel should go on the offensive. I believe that we should do this no matter what the world says. And in the end, I think the world is coming to an understanding about what the actual threat is. But again, this is leading up. And again, again, you know my position. I'm seeing more and more things lead on to the biblical prophetic mechanism. And I'm not there yet, but I am seeing the gears turning in the right direction.
Well, I'm kind of bummed out because I got to go. And then you left. And now I feel like I'm left hanging. And I'm sure everybody else does too.
Hey, Tom, I'll be on live with Vin Dog at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific tonight. On
your channel. What's your channel, John? Fellowship Bible?
It's on Vin Dog's channel. So
you'll be on Vin Dog. Vin Dog will appreciate the shout out.
7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So in about a little over an hour.
There you go, Vinny. So there you go. David, I know you were just on with James. You have the Balagon connection. You're somewhere every day. I wish I could do this again. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow I can squeeze you guys back on. I have a Q&A I'm planning to do with everybody tomorrow, but maybe we just set it up from there. It'd be great to have you guys both back.
And again, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Tom. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I mean, my mom's getting old to run into the bomb shelter every time.
Yeah, no kidding. That's the reality of it, you know. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Let me pray before we cut out. Lord, we thank you for your love for us, and I pray for your ministering to David's mom, to those who are in Israel. Lord, we have a prayer request from you in your word in Psalm 122 to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's your prayer request, asking us to pray. Lord, we thank you. We commit that to prayer, and we ask, knowing that it means Jesus is going to come back, and he's going to bring true peace to this world and Jerusalem. We thank you. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Okay, I'll be in touch with both of you guys sometime today.
Okay.
See ya. Bye, everybody.
See you,
Thanks
David.
for joining us. Join me tomorrow for the live Q&A. I don't know if it'll be me or both of these guys back. It'll be great. See ya.